The diesel engine rumbled under me like a heartbeat I could feel in my chest. I sat in my truck outside Morrison's Hardware, watching the first snowflakes of December drift past the windshield. The Pine air freshener hanging from the rearview mirror had lost most of its scent months ago, but I kept it there anyway. Linda had bought it. She'd said she'd be quick, just running in with her sister Janet to grab some weather stripping. That was 20 minutes ago. I tried her cell again, straight to voicemail. The passenger door opened. Janet climbed in, soaking wet, shivering like a leaf. Snow clung to her hair. "God, Carl, thank you for helping with the car," she said, blowing on her hands. "Route 12 is a nightmare in this weather." I stared at her. My hand was still holding the phone, Linda's voicemail message playing in my ear. Janet, Linda's sister, sitting right next to me. My wife had told me she was with Janet, but Janet was here, with me. The windshield wipers scraped across the glass. Back and forth, back and forth. That sound filled the cab while my brain tried to catch up with what I was seeing. Janet sat in my passenger seat, dripping melted snow onto the vinyl. Linda had told me, not 2 hours ago, that she was spending the afternoon with Janet, shopping, sisters catching up. "How long's it been since you talked to Linda?" I asked. Janet looked at me funny. "Linda? Maybe 6 months? We're not really—" She trailed off, reading something in my face. "Why?" I didn't answer, just put the truck in gear and headed out to Route 12 where her Honda sat on the shoulder, hood up, hazards blinking through the snow. The carburetor was gummed up. Simple fix. I worked in silence, hands moving on muscle memory while my mind spun in circles. Janet stood under an umbrella, making nervous small talk about the weather, about her job at the Safeway, about anything except the question hanging between us: where the hell was my wife? By the time I dropped Janet at the recovery house on Maple Street, the snow was coming down steady. She thanked me 3 times, her words tumbling over each other. I could tell she knew something was wrong, but she didn't ask. That's the thing about small towns. People know when to leave things alone. I drove home with the heater blasting and my hands tight on the wheel. The house was dark when I pulled in. 7:30. I made coffee I didn't drink and sat at the kitchen table, watching the clock. The cat, Linda's cat, wound around my ankles, meowing. I'd forgotten to feed her. 8 o'clock came and went, then 9. At 9:40, I heard her car in the driveway. Linda came through the door laughing, phone pressed to her ear. Snow dusted her shoulders. She had a new haircut I hadn't seen before, shorter than she usually wore it. She looked good, happy. She saw me sitting there in the dark and stopped mid-laugh. Hung up quick. "Carl, you scared me. Why are you sitting in the dark?" "Janet was with me this afternoon," I said. The color drained out of her face, then came rushing back, red in her cheeks. "What?" "Her car broke down on Route 12. I helped her fix it." I kept my voice level, calm. "You said you were with Janet." Linda's mouth opened, closed, opened again. There's 2 Janets. You're confused." Her words came out too fast, tripping over each other. "I was with Janet Hendricks. From church. You know Janet Hendricks." "Your sister Janet," I said. "That's who you told me you were with." "You misunderstood." She set her purse down hard on the counter. "God, Carl, you always do this. You hear what you want to hear." I just looked at her. 42 years of marriage, and I knew her tells. The way her hand went to her throat, the way she wouldn't meet my eyes. "Where were you, Linda?" "I don't have to explain myself to you." Her voice went cold, sharp as ice. "I'm an adult. I can go where I want." She grabbed her coat back up. "I can't do this right now. I need air." She went to the bedroom. I heard the lock click. Then muffled sounds, drawers opening, the closet door, her voice on the phone, low and urgent. I couldn't make out the words, but I caught the tone. I slept on the couch that night, or didn't sleep. Stared at the ceiling mostly, listening to the house creak and settle around me. The radiator clanked every 20 minutes like clockwork. Too loud in the silence. Morning light was just starting to gray the windows when I heard her in the bedroom. Moving fast, purposeful. I sat up. Linda came out with a suitcase. She'd packed. "Where are you going?" "I need space to think." She wouldn't look at me, just headed for the door. "I'm staying at Diane's for a few days." "Linda?" "Don't call me," she said. "I'll reach out when I'm ready." The door closed. Her car started. I stood at the window and watched her taillights disappear into the snow. The coffee cup she'd used yesterday morning still sat on the counter, lipstick mark on the rim, her reading glasses on the bathroom sink. The cat meowed, hungry, wondering why the person who always fed her was gone. I stood in my own kitchen, and realized something that made my chest tight. She wasn't coming back in a few days. She wasn't coming back at all. The first day alone, I tried to keep busy. Made a full pot of coffee out of habit, then poured half down the sink. Watched it swirl down the drain like 42 years going with it. I couldn't eat, wandered the house instead. Each room felt wrong somehow. Too big, too quiet, just me and the radiator, that damn clanking every 20 minutes marking time I didn't know how to fill. Day 2, I decided to clean. If I kept my hands moving, maybe my mind would stop spinning. I started with the kitchen, then moved to the office. That's where Linda kept all our papers, bills, tax returns, the mortgage we'd paid off 12 years early. I'd worked double shifts at the mill to do that. We'd celebrated with a bottle of cheap champagne and frozen pizza. Her closet was next. Most of her clothes were still there. She'd only packed enough for a few days. I found a box on the top shelf marked Christmas decorations in her handwriting. Except when I opened it, there weren't any decorations inside. Just papers, bank statements, documents with official-looking headers. My hands started shaking before I even knew why. The first statement showed a withdrawal I didn't remember. $500, cash. Dated a Tuesday, 2 p.m. Linda always ran errands on Tuesdays. I pulled out another statement. $800, Thursday. Another Tuesday. $300, $500, $1,200. I carried the whole box to the office and spread everything on the floor, went to the filing cabinet, and pulled our joint account records, the master statements we kept for taxes. It took me 3 hours to go through them all, matching dates, checking amounts, writing numbers on a scratch pad with a pencil that needed sharpening. The number kept growing, $20,000, $35,000, $43,000, $43,000, gone, over 18 months. I sat on the floor with papers scattered around me like evidence of a crime, which I guess it was. The afternoon sun slanted through the window, and dust motes floated in the light. Everything looked normal. Everything looked wrong. There was more in the box. Mortgage refinance documents. Pre-filled. Unsigned. For our house, the house we'd paid off, the house I'd sweated and bled for over 30 years at the mill. Linda had tried to pull $87,000 in equity out of it, without telling me. A business card was paperclipped to one of the statements. Expensive cardstock. Professional. Brett Morrison. Financial planning. On the back in Linda's handwriting, Tuesday, 2 p.m., usual place. I pulled out my phone and Googled him. Slick website, professional photo, a guy, maybe late 40s, expensive suit, that smile people use when they're selling something. Credentials listed, testimonials, all very impressive. I stared at that smile and felt something cold settle in my gut. She hadn't just been lying about where she was, she'd been planning to leave me with nothing. My phone rang. Linda's name on the screen. I looked at it for 3 rings. 4, then answered. Carl. Her voice had that syrupy tone she used when she wanted something. Condescending, like I was a child who'd thrown a tantrum. Have you calmed down? We need to talk like adults. I'm listening, I said. This whole jealousy thing is beneath you. I told you I needed space. I found the bank statements. Silence. Long enough I thought she'd hung up. What bank statements? Her voice had changed. Harder, careful. $43,000, Linda. Over 18 months. I heard her breathing. Fast, shallow. And the mortgage papers. And Brett Morrison's business card. You went through my things? Her voice spiked. You had no right. Our things, I said. Our money. Our house. I can explain. I'm listening. Another pause. I could almost hear her scrambling, regrouping. Not like this, not over the phone. She was back in control now, smooth. I'll come by tomorrow, we'll talk. Face to face. When? Afternoon, 2 o'clock. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there holding the dead phone, looking at the evidence scattered across the floor of the office I'd built with my own hands, in the house I'd paid for with 30 years of 40-hour weeks that usually turned into 60. Tomorrow, at 2 o'clock. She'd come with explanations, but I already knew something she didn't know I knew. There's no explanation that makes stealing okay, and there's no explanation that would make me believe her anymore. Sunday morning came, whether I wanted it to or not. 5 days since Linda left. 5 days of rattling around that empty house like a marble in a coffee can. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, debating. I could skip church. Nobody would blame me. Hell, half the town probably expected me to hide. But I'd been a deacon at First Baptist for 20 years. If I didn't show up, that was the same as admitting something, though I wasn't sure what. I put on a clean shirt, drove the familiar route down Main Street, past the hardware store and the diner, turning left at the old mill that had been shut down for 3 years now. The church steeple was visible from 2 blocks away, white against the gray December sky. The parking lot was already half full. I pulled in next to Bob Henderson's truck. He owned the hardware store, had for 30 years. Bob was loading something into his bed, saw me, and gave me a nod. Not his usual wave, just a nod, firm, like he was acknowledging something we both knew but wouldn't say out loud. That should have been my first warning. I was almost to the church entrance when Betty intercepted me. Betty was the church secretary. 70-something, always knew everything about everybody. Usually I avoided her. She could talk the paint off a barn, but today she grabbed my elbow and pulled me aside. "Carl," she glanced around like she was sharing state secrets. "I need to tell you something." "Betty, I'm not really in the mood for—" "I saw Linda." She said it fast, like ripping off a Band-Aid. 3 months ago, in Billings, at that hotel bar near the airport. My stomach dropped. "She was with a man," Betty continued. Her voice was gentle now, kind even. "Younger, maybe 40s, nice suit. They were close, holding hands." She squeezed my arm. "I'm sorry, Carl. I should have said something then, but I wasn't sure if it was my place. But now, with her leaving and everything," she trailed off. "I thought you should know." "Thanks, Betty. You okay?" I nodded because I didn't trust my voice. She patted my arm and headed inside. I stood there on the church steps feeling exposed. If Betty knew, everyone knew. Betty's idea of keeping a secret was only telling 3 people. The sanctuary smelled like old hymnals and furniture polish. The organ was already playing the prelude, too loud, like it always was. Mrs. Chin never could get the volume right. I walked down the center aisle to my usual pew, third from the front on the right. I'd sat there every Sunday for 2 decades. The Hendersons were already there. Frank and Margie, married 50-some years. We'd sat next to each other so long it was just understood. Carl's spot, Henderson's spot, like assigned seating nobody had to talk about. I moved to sit down. Frank shifted, not obvious, just a casual slide down the pew, creating space. Margie followed him. That gap between us might as well have been the Grand Canyon. I sat down alone. The wood creaked under me, sharp sound that seemed to echo. A few heads turned. I felt eyes on the back of my neck, hot and itchy. People knew. Pastor Tom preached on bearing one another's burdens, about forgiveness and restoration in marriage, about how God honors those who choose love over pride. His eyes found mine during the forgiveness part, held there a second longer than normal. Something in that look I couldn't quite read. Sympathy? Support? Or was he preaching at me specifically? When communion came, my hands shook taking the wafer. It stuck to the roof of my mouth, dry as dust. I couldn't swallow it. After the service, I tried to slip out fast. Didn't work. Mrs. Patterson caught me in the parking lot. She was maybe 80, taught Sunday school for longer than I'd been alive. "Carl." She took both my hands in hers. They were cold, papery. "We're praying for you and Linda to reconcile. Marriage is sacred. God honors those who forgive." "I appreciate that, Mrs. Patterson." "Don't give up on her," she said. "Whatever's happened, love covers a multitude of sins." I nodded, smiled, got in my truck. Sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, watching people stream out of the church, laughing, talking. Normal Sunday morning for them. I was the guy everyone was whispering about, the fool whose wife left him. And the expectation, the pressure, was clear. Forgive, restore, keep quiet, like I was the one who needed to fix this. I couldn't face the empty house yet, so I drove to Diane's Diner on Highway 12. Ordered coffee at the counter. The waitress, Sally, worked there forever. Brought me a slice of apple pie I hadn't asked for. "On the house," she said quietly. I nodded thanks. Couldn't eat it, but the gesture landed somewhere soft in my chest. Ray walked in 10 minutes later, spotted me, headed over. Ray was my age, maybe a year older. We'd worked the mill together for 25 years before it closed. "Heard Linda moved out," he said, sliding onto the stool next to me. "You okay, brother?" I tried to explain, the lies, the money, the affair Betty had seen. Ray listened, nodded, then clapped me on the shoulder. "Women go through things, Carl. Menopause. Empty nest. My ex went crazy for a while, too. Thought she needed to find herself, or some nonsense." He signaled Sally for coffee. "Linda will come back. They always do." "She stole $43,000. From a joint account." Ray shrugged. "Legally, that's hers, too. My ex cleaned me out. Cost me 50 grand in lawyer fees fighting it, and I still lost everything." He took a sip of coffee, grimaced. Sally's coffee was always too strong. You're 67, man. You really want to spend your last good years fighting? Start over. Find some peace. Fighting's expensive, and she'll probably win anyway. He meant well. I knew that. But something about the way he said it, resigned, bitter, made me realize Ray wasn't giving me advice. He was justifying his own choices. Tough it out, he said, standing up and dropping a 5 on the counter. You're a strong guy. Always have been. He left. I sat there with untouched pie and cold coffee, feeling more alone than I had in that empty house. My phone buzzed. Emily, my daughter, I almost didn't answer, but she was 3 states away in Seattle, and she didn't call often. I swiped to accept. Dad? Her voice had that distracted quality, typing sounds in the background. I heard you and Mom are having problems. Who told you? Mom called yesterday. She's really upset. Of course she did. Got to me first. Got to Emily first, building her narrative while I sat here trying to figure out what the hell was happening. Emily, your mother lied to me. About where she was, about money, about... You two have always had issues, Dad. She sighed, exasperated. Mom says you never talk to her, never take her anywhere, just work and church and that's it. That's not... Maybe she was lonely. Did you think about that? Something hot flashed in my chest. She stole from our retirement savings. It's a joint account. Technically, that's not stealing. More typing sounds. Look, I can't get in the middle of this. You're both adults. Work it out. Emily, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. I gotta go. Her voice softened slightly. Just try to be understanding, okay? Marriage is hard. She hung up. I sat in the diner booth, phone in my hand, while the lunch crowd started filtering in around me. The smell of burgers on the grill, the clatter of dishes, normal life happening while mine fell apart. My best friend thought I should roll over and take it. The church thought I should forgive and forget. My own daughter thought I was the problem. I drove home as the afternoon light started to fade. The house waited, dark and cold. I didn't even bother turning on the lights. Just sat in the living room with the TV on mute, just for the glow. The cat jumped on the couch, curled up next to me. I scratched behind her ears, and she purred. At least somebody was glad I was there. It was after 9 when I heard the knock. I opened the door. Janet stood there with a casserole dish in her hands. Snow was falling behind her, caught in the porch light. She looked nervous. I need to tell you something about Linda, she said. Her hands were shaking. The casserole dish rattled slightly. I found something, she said, and you're not going to like it. I let Janet in. She set the casserole on the counter, store-brand, cheap aluminum pan, the kind you get when money's tight, but you still want to bring something. Coffee? I asked. She nodded. I made a pot with the grounds she'd brought. Not my usual brand. Cheaper. But she'd thought to bring it, and that meant something. We sat at the kitchen table. The overhead light buzzed. One of those sounds you never notice until the house is quiet enough to hear everything. How'd you know about Linda leaving? I asked. Small town. Janet wrapped her hands around the mug. Betty called the recovery house. Wanted to make sure I was okay, since Linda's my sister and all. She took a breath, let it out slow. I came by here 2 days ago, she said, to get my old guitar from your basement, the one I left here years back when things were bad. I remembered. Janet had stayed with us for a month, 5 years ago. Before rehab, before she got clean, Linda had been furious, called it enabling. I'd given Janet money for treatment anyway, never told Linda. You weren't home, Janet continued. But the back door was unlocked, so I let myself in. Got the guitar. She paused, stared into her coffee. The computer was on in the office. Linda's email was still logged in. I waited. I saw a message preview, she said. From someone named Brett. It said, can't wait to see you Tuesday. Usual room. The casserole was still warm. I could smell tomato sauce and ground beef. My stomach turned. I shouldn't have looked further, Janet said. I know that, but I did. She pulled out her phone, opened it, scrolled. There were months of emails, Carl, planning their future together, references to money, to once the house equity comes through, to starting over somewhere new. She handed me the phone. I read through them. My coffee went cold while I read. Early emails from months back. Brett complimenting Linda, telling her she deserved better, that she was beautiful, vibrant, wasted on someone who didn't appreciate her. Middle emails, Linda complaining about me. He's so boring, never wants to do anything. I feel invisible. Brett's responses. You deserve to be seen. to be cherished. Later emails, logistics, money talk. The refinance should go through next month. Once we get the house money, you're free. My divorce will be final by spring, then it's just us. I kept scrolling. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They'd gone numb. One message from Linda. He'll never fight back, he never does. Brett's reply. Old men like him, too proud to admit they got played. A laughing emoji from Linda. Another message, recent, from Linda. After Christmas, I'm done. New life, new me. Brett. Can't wait to start our future, babe. I handed the phone back. Couldn't look at it anymore. Why are you telling me this? My voice came out rougher than I meant. She's your sister. Janet's eyes filled with tears. Because you saved my life. I looked at her. 2 years ago, she said, when I needed rehab. Linda said no, called me hopeless, said helping me was just enabling my addiction. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. But you gave me $5,000 anyway. Didn't tell her, just wrote me a check and said, pay it back by getting better. I'd forgotten about that, or tried to. Linda doesn't even know you did that, Janet said. You never told her. You just helped me. No judgment, no conditions. She stood up, paced to the window, back. You're more family to me than she's ever been, Janet said. I'm 6 months clean, I volunteer at the recovery house now, and I learned something there. You don't repay a debt by staying quiet when someone you love is being hurt. She's your sister, I said again, and you're the man who gave me my life back. Janet's voice was steady now, strong. I'm not going to watch her destroy yours. Before she left, I asked, the emails, how bad were they? She'd shown me some, not all. She pulled up her phone again, screenshots she'd taken. I saved them, she said, in case she deletes everything. She scrolled to one, handed the phone to me, Linda to Brett. He's so predictable. Works, church, home, like a robot. I can't do this anymore. Another, Brett to Linda. Does he even notice you're gone half the time? Linda. Honestly, I don't think so. We're roommates who share a bed, nothing more. I handed the phone back. There's more, Janet said quietly. But I think you've seen enough for tonight. Yeah. She put her hand on mine. Carl, what are you going to do? I looked at the evidence scattered on the table. The emails, the bank statements I'd pulled back out, Brett Morrison's business card with usual place written on the back. I don't know yet, I said, but that was a lie. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I just didn't know if I was strong enough to do it. Janet gave me the name of the director at the recovery house. Margaret Kessler, retired lawyer who did pro bono work now, helping people get back on their feet. She's sharp, Janet said. Helped me with some custody stuff. My ex was trying to use my addiction to keep me from seeing my kids. Margaret shut that down fast. I called the next morning. Margaret had a voice like gravel and honey, rough but warm. Janet told me about your situation, she said. Bring everything you've got. Meet me at the recovery house tomorrow, 10 a.m. The recovery house was a converted Victorian on Maple Street. Peeling paint, sagging porch, but clean. Loved, even if it was shabby. Margaret met me in the common room. She was maybe 72, with steel gray hair pulled back in a bun and reading glasses on a chain. She wore a cardigan with patches on the elbows. Looked like somebody's grandmother, but her eyes were sharp as razors. Janet introduced us, then excused herself to give us privacy. I laid everything out on the table. Bank statements, mortgage documents, printouts of the emails from Janet's phone. Margaret put on her glasses, took notes in a spiral-bound notebook. Her handwriting was tiny and precise. After 20 minutes, she looked up. Has Linda served you with any papers? Papers? Divorce papers? Separation agreement? Anything legal? No, I said. She just said she needed space, that she was staying at a friend's. Margaret opened her laptop, typed, waited, typed some more. She went very still. Then she took off her glasses and looked at me. Carl, Linda filed for divorce 3 weeks ago. The room tilted slightly. That's not possible. She never... Margaret turned the laptop around, showed me the screen, county court records, public information, Mitchell v. Mitchell, filed January 12th. Today was February 6th. She filed, Margaret said gently, but she hasn't served you yet. That's strategic. Strategic how? Her lawyer is buying time, moving pieces into place, assets, narratives, paperwork. She pulled the laptop back. Those papers she said she'd bring you, the ones she wanted you to sign, those weren't settlement discussions, Carl. Those were finalization documents. I felt cold. The radiator in the corner hissed and clanked, but I felt cold straight through. She already left me, Sayed, I said. Legally, mentally, everything. Yes, Margaret's voice was kind. Which means the marriage has been over for weeks. She's just been acting like it wasn't. Oh, every conversation since then, every I need space to think, every we need to talk, all theater. The good news, Margaret said, is that she hasn't finalized anything because you haven't signed. We have time to contest, to protect your interests. She tapped her pen on the notebook. The bad news is she has a head start in an expensive lawyer. Tell me about Brett Morrison, Margaret said. I told her everything I knew, financial advisor, the business card, the emails. Margaret searched business records on her laptop, found his website, professional photo, credentials. Licensed 15 years, no public complaints. She frowned. That's unusual. Men like this usually have a trail. She made a phone call, put it on speaker. Someone named Rick, an investigator friend. I need background on a guy, Margaret said. Brett Morrison, financial planner, Billings area. Give me an hour, Rick said. We waited. Drank bad coffee from the recovery house kitchen. Margaret asked me about my marriage. I told her the truth. It hadn't been perfect, but I'd thought it was solid. We'd raised a daughter, paid off a house, built a life. Did you love her? Margaret asked. I thought I did. Now I don't know what was real. Margaret's phone rang. Margaret, your guy's interesting, Rick said through the speaker. Brett Morrison moved through 3 financial firms in 10 years. Each departure was quiet, no lawsuits. But I made some calls. And? Rumors. Affairs with clients' wives. Twice that I can confirm, maybe more. The firms paid people off to avoid scandal. Margaret and I looked at each other. One more thing, Rick said. He's married. Susan Morrison, high school teacher in Billings. They've been married 19 years. My stomach dropped. He told Linda he was divorced, I said. They always do, Margaret said. She thanked Rick and hung up. He's done this before, she said. Find an older couple with assets, seduce the wife, help her extract equity or funds, get his cut, move on. She looked at me. Linda wasn't special to him, Carl. She was a mark. Can we prove fraud? I asked. If we can show he advised Linda to move money for his benefit, yes, but we need evidence beyond circumstantial. Margaret drummed her fingers on the table, thinking. I want to talk to Susan Morrison. His wife? If he's done this before, she might know. She might have evidence. I felt uncomfortable. That feels wrong, dragging her into this. Carl. Margaret's voice was firm. She's already in it. She just doesn't know you exist yet. She pulled out her phone, found Susan Morrison's number through the school directory, dialed, put it on speaker. A woman answered, tired voice. Hello? Mrs. Morrison, my name is Margaret Kessler. I'm an attorney helping a client whose wife is involved with your husband. Silence. Long enough I thought she'd hung up. Then, which one? Margaret and I looked at each other. I'm sorry? Margaret said. Which wife? Susan Morrison's voice was flat, exhausted. I'm assuming this is about money? Yes, Margaret said. And systematic deception. A bitter laugh came through the phone. What do you need? Susan Morrison told her story in that same flat, tired voice. Married Brett 19 years ago. First decade was good. Then the affairs started. First one was 7 years ago, she said through the speaker. A client's wife. I found out. Considered leaving, but we had 2 kids in high school, and I thought if I just held on, he'd stop. Margaret took notes. I just listened. Second affair was 4 years ago. Same pattern. Older couple. He helped the wife move money around. Got a commission, I guess. Or a cut. I don't know. Susan's voice cracked. That's when I started documenting, saving texts, printing emails, recording conversations when I could. Why didn't you leave? I asked. My daughter was in college. I didn't want her to know during school. Didn't want to ruin that for her. She paused. She graduates in May. I was going to file for divorce then. Would you be willing to provide evidence? Margaret asked. Maybe testify? Another long pause. Yes, Susan said finally. I'm tired of protecting him. And your client doesn't deserve this. Honestly, neither does his wife. Brett's good at what he does. She agreed to meet us, bring her documentation, help expose the pattern. After the call ended, I sat back in the folding chair. Margaret was already making notes, planning strategy. This changes everything, she said. We can prove Brett's a serial con artist. That helps your case significantly. But I barely heard her. I was thinking about Susan Morrison, 19 years, waiting, documenting, too afraid or too tired or too something to leave. Was that going to be me? The next 2 weeks were the longest of my life. Margaret worked on the case, gathering evidence, contacting Linda's lawyer, filing motions to contest the divorce. I tried to keep busy, fix things around the house that didn't need fixing, reorganize the garage, change the oil in the truck twice, couldn't sleep. I'd lie awake at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling, running numbers in my head. Legal fees I couldn't afford. A fight I might lose anyway. Linda's lawyer was expensive. I'd looked him up. Mine was working pro bono out of the kindness of her heart. Ray stopped by again one afternoon, brought beer. We sat on the porch even though it was cold as hell. You really going to fight this? He asked. Thinking about it. Carl? He popped open a beer. I'm going to be straight with you, brother. Fighting cost me everything. 50 grand in legal fees, 2 years of stress, and you know what I got? Nothing. She still left. I just ended up broke and alone. So what should I do? Let her go. Sign the papers. Start over. He took a long drink. You're 67. How many good years you got left? You want to spend them in court? After he left, I felt worse, not better. Mrs. Patterson called from the church. Carl, we're praying for you and Linda, she said. For reconciliation. Marriage is a covenant before God. I appreciate that. Don't give up on her. Whatever she's done, love covers a multitude of sins. I thanked her, hung up, sat in the dark living room. The cat curled up in Linda's chair, the one she'd always claimed to by the window. Even the cat knew she wasn't coming back. Emily called. I almost didn't answer. Dad, Mom called me crying, she said. Traffic noise in the background. She was driving. She says you're being stubborn and vindictive, that you won't even talk to her. Emily, she filed for divorce because you wouldn't communicate for months. She felt like she had no choice. That's not what happened. Then what did happen? Her voice was sharp, frustrated. Because from where I'm sitting, you're both acting like children. Your mother stole $43,000 from our retirement account. It's a joint account, Dad. Legally, that's her money, too. She lied about where she was, about who she was with. You're obsessing over one lie. She was probably embarrassed. Emily sighed. Dad, honestly, you've always been closed off. Maybe if you'd paid attention to her, this wouldn't have happened. Did she tell you about Brett Morrison? Who? Her affair partner. The financial advisor who's married with 2 kids. Silence. Dad, now you're making things up. Mom said you'd try to turn me against her. I have proof, text messages, bank records. I don't want to hear this. Her voice rose. Jesus, Dad, I have to go. Please, just sign the papers and move on. This is exhausting for everyone. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone. My best friend thought I should give up. The church thought I should forgive and forget. My own daughter thought I was lying. That night, maybe 2 a.m., maybe 3, I sat at the kitchen table in the dark. I'd pulled out the papers Margaret had prepared, contest the divorce, fight for the house, expose the affair, demand accountability. All I had to do was sign them, file them, start the war. But what if Ray was right? What if I was just throwing good money after bad? Fighting a battle I'd lose anyway? What if Emily was right and I was the problem? I looked at my wedding photo on the mantle. Linda in that yellow dress, me in my good suit. Young, smiling, believing. 42 years ago, I could sign Margaret's papers, or I could sign Linda's, end it clean, disappear. Who even cared anymore? I put my head in my hands. Morning came. I hadn't slept. I shuffled to the front porch for the newspaper. Cold enough to see my breath. There was a pie on the porch rail, covered in plastic wrap, still warm. A note was taped to it. Betty's handwriting. We don't believe her story. Your church family. I stood there in the cold, holding that pie, and something shifted inside me. If I gave up now, I was telling everyone that lies win, that bullies and thieves get to erase people like me, that 42 years of honest work means nothing. I went inside, cut a slice of pie, ate it standing at the counter. It tasted like dignity. I picked up the phone, called Margaret. Set up that meeting with Susan Morrison, I said. You're sure? I've never been more sure of anything in my life. The first week of February, I met with Margaret 3 times. We spread documents across the tables at the recovery house like battle plans, bank statements, mortgage papers, printed emails. Janet sat with us sometimes, moral support more than anything. We need everything organized, Margaret said. Timeline, evidence folders, clear presentation. She contacted Linda's lawyer, gave him notice that I was contesting the divorce and had representation now. He called back within the hour. Margaret put it on speaker. My client filed in good faith, he said. Mr. Mitchell has been unresponsive to attempts at reconciliation. Your client filed secretly, Margaret said, while systematically withdrawing marital assets. We have documentation. Silence on the line. We should meet, he said. His voice had changed, less confident. We will, Margaret said, but not privately. Pastor Tom Hendricks has agreed to mediate a family meeting. All parties present, evidence on the table. She hung up, looked at me. He wasn't expecting you to have a lawyer, or evidence. Linda sold him a story about you being difficult. What now? Now we meet with Susan Morrison. And then we get your daughter here. We met Susan at a diner in Billings. Neutral ground, 45 minutes from home. She was already there when we arrived. Sitting in a back booth, coffee untouched in front of her, she wore a cardigan and teacher's clothes, sensible, tired, wedding ring still on her finger. Margaret introduced us. I slid into the booth across from her. Thank you for meeting us, I said. Susan nodded, pulled a folder from her bag. It was thick, stuffed full. 19 years, she said. I've been married to Brett for 19 years. First 10 were good, or I thought they were. She opened the folder, started laying out papers. This is from 7 years ago, Brett's first affair that I know of. Client named Patricia Chen. Husband was 72. Brett helped Patricia move money from their joint account into a separate one, told her it was protecting her assets in case of divorce. She showed us bank records, text messages. I found out, confronted him. He cried, apologized, said it was a mistake. I believed him. Her voice was flat, no emotion left. We had kids in high school. I didn't want to blow up their lives. She pulled out more papers. 4 years ago, another client's wife, same pattern, older couple. Brett seduced the wife, helped move money. This time I started documenting. She showed us everything. Texts she'd saved, emails she'd printed, bank statements showing money Brett had hidden. Then she pulled out her phone. This is from 6 months ago. I recorded it. He didn't know I was home. She played it. Brett's voice came through the speaker, talking to someone on his phone. The old guy won't know what hit him. They never do. Yeah, wife thinks I'm her savior. Classic. Soon as the house equity clears, I'm out. My stomach turned. Another recording. Pattern's always the same. Find the lonely wife, be the hero, drain the assets, ghost. Susan stopped the recording, put her phone down. Your wife isn't the first, she said, looking at me. And she wasn't going to be the last. Brett's good at what he does. Why are you helping me? I asked. Because I'm tired. She folded her hands on the table. And because you don't deserve this. Honestly, neither does Linda. He manipulates people. That's what he does. When's your daughter graduate? Margaret asked. May 15th. Susan smiled for the first time, sad smile. Then I'm filing. 20 years is long enough. She pushed the folder across the table. This is yours, she said. Copies of everything. Use it. Stop him. Back at the recovery house, Margaret organized everything into presentation folders. We have enough to expose Brett completely, she said. His pattern, his lies, this helps your case and protects Linda from further manipulation. What about Emily? I asked. My daughter still wasn't talking to me, still thought I was making things up. Call her, Margaret said. Don't argue, just ask her to listen. I called Emily that night. She answered on the 4th ring. Dad, I told you. Emily, please, 2 minutes, just listen. She sighed. Fine. I'm going to send you something, an audio file. Dad, please. I sent her one of Susan's recordings, the one where Brett talked about the old guy and draining assets. I heard her phone buzz. Silence while she listened. Then, Dad, is this? That's Brett Morrison, I said. Your mother's affair partner. He's married, has been for 19 years. He's done this to multiple women. Emily was quiet. I'm not making this up, I said. I have bank records, emails, testimony from his wife. Your mother is being conned, but she also chose to lie to me for over a year. When's the meeting? Emily asked quietly. Week after next, Sunday afternoon, after church. Long pause. I'll fly home, she said. I had to sit down. First time I'd asked my daughter for help in years. First time she'd said yes without arguing. Thank you, I said. After we hung up, I put my head in my hands. Janet was there. She squeezed my shoulder. She's coming, I said. I know. You did good, Carl. Margaret arranged the meeting with Pastor Tom. We met in his office at the church. I told him everything. The affair, the money, the divorce filed in secret. Tom listened without judgment. When I finished, he took off his reading glasses and rubbed his eyes. 8 years ago, he said, my wife left me. Had an affair with a man from her work. The church board at my previous congregation forced me to resign, said a divorced pastor couldn't counsel families. I hadn't known that. I stayed silent, Tom said. Thought it was the Christian thing to do. Keep the peace, don't make waves. He looked at me. I lost everything anyway. My marriage, my church, my reputation. He put his glasses back on. Don't make my mistake, Carl. He agreed to mediate, set ground rules, facts only. No yelling, evidence-based discussion, church basement, Sunday afternoon, 2 weeks away. Attendees, me, Linda, Emily, Janet, the lawyers, Pastor Tom. Susan Morrison would be there too, surprise witness. The days before the meeting crawled by. Margaret coached me, taught me to stick to facts, stay calm, don't get emotional. You're not trying to hurt her, Margaret said. You're protecting yourself. I practiced my speech, wrote key points on index cards because my hands shook too much to memorize everything. Janet helped, made me rehearse in front of her. Linda, we've been married 42 years, I said, reading from my cards. I worked every day to provide. You were my partner. I trusted you. My voice cracked. Keep going, Janet said gently. I kept going. The night before the meeting, I laid out my clothes. Work boots, not dress shoes, clean flannel shirt, my one sport coat. The boots were symbolic. I was a working man, not a fool. I slept maybe 2 hours. Morning of the meeting, I sat on the porch with coffee. First warm wind of spring was blowing from the west. Chinook wind, we called it. The kind that breaks winter on the plains. Snow was starting to melt. I could hear it dripping from the roof. Today, I stopped being silent. I said to nobody. I got in my truck, drove to the church. Linda's car was already in the parking lot. She'd arrived early. I sat in my truck with my hands on the steering wheel. Win or lose, I said. At least I stood up. I opened the door, stepped out into the winter sunlight. Time to tell the truth. The church basement smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, that persistent buzz that gets into your skull if you listen too long. Pastor Tom had arranged folding tables in a rectangle, metal chairs around them. Like a courtroom, but cheaper. I was the last to arrive. Linda sat at the far end with her lawyer, a guy in an expensive suit, probably 50, with silver at his temples. She'd dressed up, new outfit I'd never seen, hair done. She looked good, confident, like she was here to win something. Emily sat separate from both of us, Switzerland. Her face was unreadable. Janet stood along the wall, moral support. She gave me a small nod. Margaret sat to my right, folders organized in front of her, evidence ready. Pastor Tom took his place at the head of the table. We're here to discuss the dissolution of the Mitchell marriage, he said. Ground rules, speak in turn, present facts, no personal attacks. Our goal is a fair settlement that honors both parties. Linda's lawyer jumped in first. Mrs. Mitchell filed for divorce due to irreparable breakdown of the marriage. She's requesting equitable distribution of assets. The house should be sold, proceeds split, retirement accounts divided. She's also requesting spousal support given the length of the marriage. Margaret didn't miss a beat. Interesting, she said. Given that Mrs. Mitchell filed 3 weeks before informing Mr. Mitchell and has been systematically withdrawing marital funds for 18 months. Linda's lawyer looked uncomfortable. He glanced at Linda. She wouldn't meet his eyes. I pulled out my note cards. My hands were shaking, but I started anyway. Linda, my voice came out steadier than I felt. We've been married 42 years. I worked every day to provide for us. You were my partner. I trusted you with everything. I placed the first stack of papers on the table. Bank statements, yellow highlights showing the withdrawals. $43,000, I said. Withdrawn over 18 months. I never authorized any of it. Linda started to speak. Margaret held up a hand. Please let him finish. I showed the printed emails, the affair correspondence, Brett's name clearly visible. You told me you were with your sister, I said. But you were with him. Linda's composure was cracking, her face flushed. Those are private, she said. You had no right. I gave them to him, Janet said from the wall. Linda turned, the look on her face, betrayal, shock, rage. You're my sister, and he's been more family to me than you've ever been, Janet said quietly. Emily watched this all unfold, silent, taking it in. I placed the mortgage documents on the table. You tried to refinance our house, Dwight, I said. The house we paid off 12 years ago, tried to pull out $87,000, without telling me. Linda's lawyer was reading the documents now. His face was changing. He hadn't known about this. Mrs. Mitchell, he said carefully, we should discuss. The basement door opened. Everyone turned. Susan Morrison stood in the doorway. She was wearing teacher clothes, cardigan, sensible shoes. She looked tired, but determined. Linda's face went from confused to horrified as Susan walked to the table. I'm Susan, she said, looking directly at Linda. Brett's wife, his actual wife. We've been married 19 years. Linda couldn't speak. He told you he was divorced, didn't he? Susan said. Not cruel, almost gentle. Linda's mouth opened, closed. Susan placed a folder on the table, thick with papers. He's done this before, she said, multiple times. Other clients' wives, same pattern, same lines, same promises. She opened the folder, spread out the evidence, timeline, photos, text messages Brett had sent to other women, the exact same messages he'd sent to Linda. I understand you. I see you. You deserve better. Word for word. Then Susan pulled out her phone, played the recording. Brett's voice filled the basement. The old guy won't know what hit him. They never do. Linda stared at the phone like it was a snake. Another clip. Wife thinks I'm her savior. Classic. Soon as the house equity clears, I'm out. Linda's face crumbled. She understood now. She wasn't special, wasn't loved, wasn't chosen. She was a mark. He said he loved me, Linda whispered. He told me that too, Susan said, every morning for 19 years, while he was doing this. Linda tried to recover, turned on me instead. You never paid attention to me. Her voice broke. Always working, always at church. I was lonely. You made me feel invisible. So you stole from me? I said quietly. And lied for over a year? Emily spoke for the first time. Mom, stop. Linda looked at her daughter, desperate, grasping. Emily, you understand. You know what he's like. No, Mom, Emily's voice was firm. I don't understand. Dad called me 6 times this month. You called once, and every time you lied. Linda broke then, real tears, not performance, genuine devastation. She'd lost the narrative, lost her daughter, lost her future. Pastor Tom called for a break. In the hallway, Linda's lawyer pulled Margaret aside. I could hear them through the door. What are you asking for? Mr. Mitchell keeps the house, his full pension, and his personal assets. Mrs. Mitchell receives $30,000, approximately what she contributed to savings before the withdrawals. No spousal support, clean break. With the fraud pattern, she could face charges, Margaret added. As an accomplice. This is generous. I heard Linda's lawyer sigh. I'll recommend she take it. 10 minutes later, we were back at the table. Papers were drawn up. Margaret had brought them pre-prepared. Linda signed in silence. Her hands shook. Mascara ran down her face. Nobody spoke. Pastor Tom witnessed the signatures. It was done. Linda stood first, grabbed her purse, walked out without looking at anyone. Emily came to me, wrapped her arms around me, held tight. I'm sorry, Dad, she whispered. I should have believed you. You believe me now, I said. That's what matters. I walked to my truck alone. Margaret had stayed behind to file the papers. The parking lot was empty except for my truck and Emily's rental car. The Chinook wind was still blowing, warm, spring coming. I sat in the truck with my hands on the steering wheel. They were shaking now, all the adrenaline draining out. I sat there for 10 minutes, maybe 15, finally started the engine. It was over. It was finally over. The divorce was finalized within a week. Both of us had signed, no contest, no delays. Linda left town 3 days later, moved to Spokane, I heard through Betty, far enough away that she wouldn't run into people who knew the truth. Brett Morrison was facing fraud charges in Billings. Susan had filed a complaint with the state licensing board and the police. His financial planning license was suspended pending investigation. Word was he'd lawyered up, wasn't looking so smooth anymore. The gossip in town shifted. People who'd avoided me at church started meeting my eyes again. Some even apologized. Betty stopped by with a casserole, tuna noodle. Terrible, but made with love. We knew something was off, she said. Linda's story never quite added up, but you know how it is. People don't want to get involved. I know. You did the right thing, Carl, standing up for yourself. After she left, I ate some of that terrible casserole. It tasted like vindication. Bob at the hardware store made my discount permanent. Anytime you need something, he said, ringing up some fence posts I was buying. Family rate. I appreciate that, Bob. That's what we do, he said. We take care of our own. Ray came by again. No beer this time. Just showed up on my porch on a Saturday afternoon. I need to apologize, he said. I gave you shit advice. Told you to roll over and take it. You were trying to help. No, I was trying to make myself feel better about my own choices. He sat down on the porch steps. My ex left me the same way. Cheated, stole money, and I just let her. Didn't fight. Told myself I was being mature, taking the high road. He looked out at the yard, at the snow melting into mud. Truth is, I was scared, and then I spent 10 years bitter about it. He looked at me. You did what I should have done. You stood up, and I'm proud of you, brother. Thanks, Ray. We sat there in comfortable silence, two old men on a porch. Spring coming, winter finally breaking. Pastor Tom started stopping by every Thursday morning. Brought good coffee from that place in Billings. We'd sit at my kitchen table and talk, sometimes about the Bible, sometimes about baseball, sometimes about nothing at all. How you holding up? He asked one Thursday. Better, I said. Some days are harder than others, but I can sleep now. That's good. Church asked me to join the men's group, I said. Tuesday mornings, I'm thinking about it. You should, Tom said. They're good guys, real, no bullshit. Coming from a pastor, that made me laugh. I joined the group the next week, sat in a circle in the church basement with 8 other men. Ages ranged from 30 to 70. We talked about faith and doubt and fear and failure. Nobody judged, nobody preached. We just talked. It was the most honest hour of my week. Emily called every Sunday evening, new tradition. That first call after the meeting, she cried, I'm so sorry, Dad. I should have believed you from the start. You didn't have all the information, I said. Your mother told you her version. I get it. But you're my father. I should have trusted you. You trust me now, I said. That's what matters. We talked for an hour, really talked, about the marriage, about how I'd been closed off sometimes, about how she'd felt caught in the middle as a kid. We weren't perfect, I said. Your mother and I, but I thought we were solid. Guess I was wrong. She made her choices, Dad. You can't blame yourself for that. The next Sunday, we talked about her job, her life in Seattle, her boyfriend I'd only met once. You should bring him for a visit, I said. In the summer, maybe. Really? Really. It felt like rebuilding something I'd let fall apart years ago. Emily was planning to visit in May for her birthday. First time in 3 years, Janet asked if I'd volunteer with her at the recovery house. They needed someone to help guys with resumes and job applications. They're coming out of prison, out of rehab, trying to start over, Janet said. A lot of them don't know how to write a cover letter or fill out an application. I started going on Saturday mornings. The first guy I helped was named Marcus, 28, fresh out of county lockup for drug charges, 3rd offense. I don't know how to do this, he said, staring at a blank job application. It's not hard, I said. Just tell them who you are and what you can do. We worked through it together. By the end, he had a completed application and a decent resume. Thanks, man, he said. You're more than your worst mistake, I told him. Remember that. He nodded. I realized I was talking to myself as much as to him. I kept going back every Saturday, helped out 10, 15 guys. Some got jobs, some didn't, but they all left with a little more hope than they came in with. Margaret stopped by one Saturday to check on the program. "You're good at this," she said. "It feels right." She tried to refuse payment for the legal work she'd done. I insisted on donating to the recovery house instead. $5,000, same amount I'd given Janet years ago. "Pay it forward," Margaret said. "That's the only currency that matters." Susan Morrison texted me occasionally. Updates, support. "Filed for divorce last week," one text said. "Daughter graduates tomorrow, then I'm free." "Congratulations," I wrote back, on both counts. "Thank you for giving me the courage. Seeing you stand up helped me do the same. You gave me the evidence, even trade." We weren't friends exactly, more like survivors of the same shipwreck, connected by trauma and testimony. She'd be okay. So would I. Money was tight but stable. The $30,000 I'd gotten from Linda was less than I'd hoped for, but it was something. The house was paid off. My pension was intact. No debt. I lived simply. Didn't need much. Learned to cook basic meals, spaghetti, chili, grilled cheese sandwiches that actually tasted good. The cat and I developed a routine. She'd sit on my lap in the evenings while I read or watched TV. Sometimes I'd talk to her. She never judged. Late March came. The snow was almost gone. Just patches left in the shade where the sun didn't reach. I started planting a garden. Hadn't gardened in years. Linda always did that. But I thought I'd try. Tomatoes maybe. Peppers. Something simple. My neighbor, old Mr. Chen from 2 houses down, saw me looking at seed catalogs on the porch. "You need help with that garden? You let me know," he said. "I might take you up on that." "Spring's a good time to start something new," he said. One evening in late March, Janet came by with coffee. The good stuff Margaret had introduced us to. We sat on the porch. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and orange. A robin was singing somewhere in the yard. 3-note song, clear and perfect. "You ever think about dating again?" Janet asked. I laughed. Actually laughed. "Once was plenty." "Fair enough." She sipped her coffee. "You seem good, though. Better." "I am better." I watched that robin hop across the muddy ground, pulling up a worm. Simple, ordinary, beautiful. You know what? I'm not lonely. No? Not like I thought I'd be. I got people now, real people. Janet smiled. "Yeah, you do." We sat in silence. Comfortable silence between friends, the kind where you don't need to fill the air with words. The sun kept setting, the robin kept singing. I finished my coffee, stood up. "Think I'll turn in early. Got church tomorrow." Janet left with a friendly wave. I stood on the porch alone, looking at my yard, my house, my life. It was different than I'd planned. Smaller, quieter, lonelier in some ways, but it was honest, and it was mine. I went inside, leaving the porch light on. The cat followed me, meowing for dinner. Tomorrow was Sunday. I'd wake up early, make coffee, go to church, sit in my pew, without shame. And Monday, I'd start building that garden. Spring was coming. Winter was finally over. I was going to be all right. I wake up early now, before dawn most days, not because I can't sleep. I sleep fine these days, but because mornings become my favorite time. I make coffee in the dark kitchen, the good stuff. Margaret taught me that life's too short for bad coffee. I take my cup out to the porch and watch the sun come up. This morning, it's early April. The robins are back. Church bells will ring in an hour from First Baptist, calling people to Sunday service. But right now, it's just me and the coffee steam, rising in the cold air, and the world waking up around me. I've been thinking a lot lately about what happened. About Linda and Brett and all of it. About what I lost and what I kept. Some things you survive, you don't get over. That's what I've learned. The betrayal still stings sometimes, 42 years reduced to lies and stolen money. But survival's enough. You don't have to get over something to move past it. I spent 42 years keeping the peace, being quiet, not making waves. Thought that was what good men did. Turned out, peace without truth is just cowardice with better PR. They took my money, took my marriage, took my reputation for a while. But they couldn't take the one thing that mattered, my ability to look myself in the mirror. I used to think ending up alone was the worst thing that could happen. Spent a lot of nights scared of that. But I learned something. Ending up alone isn't the worst thing. Ending up a liar is worse. Ending up someone you can't respect is worse. And here's the thing. I'm not really alone anyway. When you tell the truth, some people leave. Ray was right about that. But what he didn't tell me is that better people show up, real people, Janet and Margaret and Pastor Tom and all those guys at the men's group who don't bullshit each other. Emily calling every Sunday. Mr. Chin teaching me about tomatoes. That's worth more than a marriage built on lies ever was. People keep asking me about forgiveness. If I've forgiven Linda, I have. Not because she asked, she didn't, but because carrying hate is heavier than carrying grief, takes more energy, and I don't have energy to waste anymore. But here's what people don't understand. Forgiveness and trust aren't the same thing. I can forgive her and still keep the door locked. Both things are true. I think about my father sometimes. He died at 64, heart attack at the mill, alone, on the floor, between two machines that kept running. I'm 67 now, 3 years older than Dad ever got to be. And I'm sitting here on my porch, watching the sun come up, with good coffee in my hand and nobody lying to me. The house behind me is paid for. The garden I'm planting will have tomatoes and peppers by July. My daughter's coming to visit next month. That's not nothing. That's actually everything. At 67, I learned something I should have learned at 27. You're never too old to stand up, never too old to use your voice. It just looks different. Quieter maybe, slower, but maybe quiet's underrated. The sun's fully up now, gold light on the last patches of snow in the yard. That robin's still singing. The coffee's almost gone. I stand up, stretch, my back cracks in 3 places, old man sounds. But I'm here, I'm standing, and when I go inside and past that bathroom mirror, I'll be able to look myself in the eye. Sometimes the only person you need to prove anything to is yourself. And today, like every day since I told the truth, I can look in the mirror. That's enough. That's more than enough. I take one last look at the sunrise, at my yard, at the world I nearly gave up on. Then I go inside to get ready for church. There's a pie I need to bake for Betty. She's been asking for my apple recipe. Turns out I'm pretty good at making pie.